This ring is for the man I've secretly been in love with for the past 10 years. That's what my son's wife said at their wedding. At their wedding. Then she walked right past him, my beautiful boy standing there in his perfect suit, hands shaking as he waited for her to place that ring on his finger, and she slipped it onto another man's hand instead. The room froze. The music stopped. My son's smile died right there in front of everyone. I'm his mother, and what happened next changed everything we believed about love, loyalty, and revenge. Please, before we go deeper, like this video, subscribe to Revenge Fury, and comment where you're watching from: Nigeria, the US, the Philippines, or anywhere, because what you're about to hear is a mother's silence turned into justice. You need to understand something about me. I'm not the kind of woman who screams or throws scenes. I raised my son to be gentle, to be kind, to believe in the goodness of people. For 32 years, I watched him grow into the most beautiful soul you could ever meet. He worked double shifts at the factory, saved every penny, never complained about the overtime that left him exhausted every night. When he met Sarah, his eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Mama," he told me, tears in his eyes, "I finally found her. The one who's going to make everything worth it." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. I spent 18 months planning their wedding. 18 months of my life, pouring my savings, my energy, my dreams into making his day perfect. The venue cost me 3 months' salary. The flowers, white roses, because that's what she wanted, another month's pay. The catering, the music, the photographer. I sold my grandmother's jewelry, the only thing of value I owned, to pay for her dress. Every penny, every flower, every smile that day was supposed to be his joy. I never imagined it would become his humiliation. Sarah seemed perfect on the surface. Pretty, with that sweet laugh that made my son melt every time. She called me Mama Linda and brought me flowers on Mother's Day. But there was something cold behind those green eyes. Something that made my stomach twist every time she looked at me. The late-night phone calls started 3 months before the wedding. She'd step outside to take them, whispering into her phone like she was sharing state secrets. When I asked my son about it, he just shrugged. "Wedding stress, Mama. You know how brides get." But I knew. A mother always knows. Then there were the old friend mentions. David this, David that. David from college. David who was helping with wedding planning. David who just happened to be the best man. The way her voice changed when she said his name, it wasn't the voice of someone talking about a friend. I hired a private investigator. Yes, I did that. Call me paranoid, call me a meddling mother-in-law, I don't care. I've seen too many good men destroyed by beautiful lies, and I wasn't going to let my son become another casualty. What Marcus found made my blood run cold. The morning of the wedding, I woke up with lead in my stomach. The venue was gorgeous, the grand ballroom at the Riverside Hotel, with crystal chandeliers casting rainbow patterns across white marble floors. 500 guests, all dressed in their finest, all there to celebrate what they thought was true love. My son stood at the altar like a prince from a fairy tale. His father's cufflinks, the only thing he left behind when he died, gleamed on his wrists. His smile was so pure, so full of hope, it broke my heart to look at him. The music began. Sarah appeared at the back of the hall in that dress I bankrupted myself to buy, and for a moment, she looked like an angel. The guests sighed in appreciation. Someone whispered, "Beautiful." My son's eyes glistened when she walked down the aisle. But I saw what others didn't. The way her eyes searched the crowd, not looking at my son, but scanning the faces until she found David. The way her hands trembled, not with joy, but with something else entirely. Fear? Excitement? I couldn't tell. The priest began the ceremony. His voice echoed through the hall, speaking of love and commitment and forsaking all others. Sarah's responses came out shaky, barely audible. I thought it was nerves, until I heard what came next. They reached the ring exchange. My son went first, his voice strong and clear as he promised to love, honor, and cherish her for the rest of his life. His hands were steady as he slipped that gold band onto her finger. Then it was her turn. She took the ring, my grandmother's ring that I'd given my son to give to her, and held it up. The entire hall went silent, waiting for those traditional words we'd all heard 1,000 times before. Instead, she turned to face the congregation. Her voice was trembling, but clear enough for everyone to hear. This ring is for the man I've secretly been in love with for the past 10 years. The words hit the air like a physical blow. Guests gasped. Someone dropped their phone. I felt my heart stop beating. She walked right past my son, who stood there frozen like a statue, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and then the most horrible realization I've ever witnessed. She walked straight to David, the best man, and slipped that ring onto his finger. The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear the sound of heartbreak breaking inside that hall. My son's world collapsed before the I do could even be spoken. But here's what nobody expected. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I walked away. Slowly, calmly, I made my way to the back of the hall where the media team was stationed. The videographer looked at me with wide, confused eyes. Mrs. Johnson? What's happening? Should we stop filming? No, I said, my voice steady as stone. In fact, I need you to play something. Something I gave you earlier to hold. Play it now. On the big screen. Every guest deserves to know the truth. The young man's hands shook as he loaded the USB drive I'd given him that morning. I'd told him it was backup footage, something to keep safe just in case. It wasn't backup footage. The screen flickered to life, and there it was. Clear as day, recorded 2 nights before the wedding. Sarah and David at the Moonlight Motel on Highway 6. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. The images were crystal clear, thanks to Marcus and his long-lens camera. Sarah's car in the parking lot. David arriving 20 minutes later. The two of them embracing in the doorway of room 12 like they were drowning and each other was air. The gasps from the congregation turned to screams. Someone's grandmother fainted. Children were quickly ushered outside. The bride's father, a proud man who'd walked her down the aisle just minutes earlier, collapsed into his chair, his face gray with shame. Turn it off. Sarah shrieked from the altar, but her voice was lost in the chaos. The video continued. More footage from the investigator. Text messages between Sarah and David, displayed in high definition for all to see. I can't wait to be done with this charade. After tomorrow, we can finally be together. The ring ceremony will be our real wedding. My son stood at the altar, watching his entire world burn on a 60-inch screen. But he wasn't crying. He was angry. Furiously, righteously angry, and for the first time in his gentle life, I was proud to see fire in his eyes. David tried to run. Actually tried to push through the crowd and escape out the back door. But someone, I think it was my son's cousin Marcus, tackled him right there in the aisle. Within minutes, the police arrived. Apparently someone had called them when the chaos started. The bride's family tried to beg. Her mother grabbed my arm, tears streaming down her face. Please, Linda, this is all a misunderstanding. Sarah's been under so much stress. I pulled my arm away gently but firmly. The only misunderstanding, I said, my voice carrying across the now silent hall, was thinking my son deserved anything less than complete honesty. The video clips had already been uploaded to social media by a dozen different guests. Within an hour, #weddingbetrayal was trending. The footage of Sarah declaring her love for another man at her own wedding went viral. The follow-up footage from the motel made sure everyone understood this wasn't some romantic gesture or wedding day panic. This was calculated. This was planned. This was cruelty disguised as love. The wedding was canceled immediately. The reception hall stood empty, tables full of untouched food, flowers wilting under lights that should have illuminated celebration, but instead lit up shame. My son left that night, packed his bags and drove 6 hours to his uncle's house in Portland. He needed space, he said. Time to think. Time to heal. I understood. The fallout was swift and merciless. Sarah's employer, a high-end marketing firm that prided itself on family values, let her go within a week. Poor company representation, they called it. David lost his job at the bank when the footage made it to local news stations. People called me heartless. They said I could have handled it privately, that I destroyed 2 families for the sake of revenge. They're wrong. I didn't destroy anything. I simply refused to let lies masquerade as love in my presence. The gossip followed me for months. Whispers in the grocery store, sideways looks at church. People love to judge when they haven't walked in your shoes, when they haven't watched their child's heart get shattered by someone they trusted. But I stayed calm. I kept my head high, because I knew the truth, and the truth was worth any amount of social discomfort. My son came home 6 months later. Different, but stronger. He'd gotten a new job, made new friends, started going to therapy. When he smiled, really smiled, for the first time since the wedding, I knew I'd made the right choice. Thank you, Mama, he said one evening as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. For seeing what I couldn't see. For protecting me when I couldn't protect myself. That's all I ever wanted. To protect my child. Sarah disappeared from town shortly after the video went viral. Someone said she moved to another state, started over with a new name. I hope she learned something from the experience. I hope she learned that love built on deception isn't love at all. David tried to contact my son once, about a year later. Sent him a letter talking about misunderstandings and complicated feelings. My son threw it away without reading it fully. Some betrayals, he said, don't deserve second thoughts. He's right. 2 years later, my son met Emma, a kindergarten teacher with kind eyes and a laugh that sounds like music. When she looks at him, there's no deception, no hidden agenda. Just pure, honest affection. Their engagement party is next month. Small, intimate, real. That day at the wedding taught me something important. Revenge isn't shouting. It's standing still while truth does the talking. It's refusing to participate in lies, even when everyone else is comfortable with them. They called me heartless, but hearts aren't meant to fund betrayal. Hearts are meant to protect the people we love, even when that protection comes at a cost. Some people say I went too far. That I should have spoken to Sarah privately, given her a chance to do the right thing. But she'd had months to do the right thing. She'd had every opportunity to be honest with my son, to break off an engagement built on lies, to spare him the humiliation of finding out on what should have been the happiest day of his life. Instead, she chose cruelty. She chose to make her confession a public spectacle, to turn my son's wedding into her personal dramatic reveal. I simply made sure the whole truth came out, not just her version of it. Looking back, I don't regret anything. Not the investigation, not the public exposure, not the social media storm that followed. My son deserved better than a wife who was already married to someone else in her heart. He deserved truth. And truth, when guided by proof, becomes the loudest justice. I sleep well at night knowing that somewhere, a good man is building a real life with someone who truly loves him. Someone who says his name the way Sarah said David's. Someone who looks at him like he's the answer to every prayer she's ever whispered. That's worth every penny I spent, every judgment I faced, every whisper behind my back. Love without truth is poison. And I refuse to serve poison to my child. If you've ever stayed silent when betrayal burned your home and let truth expose it instead, this story is for you. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for someone we love is refuse to participate in their destruction. Like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from so more people can learn that peace doesn't come from revenge. It comes from knowing the truth always wins. The truth always wins.